I entirely beg you, people and government of the DPR Korea, for your forgiveness.
North Korea is one of the most secretive countries in the world. Its government tightly controls what information gets in and out, making it hard to know what life is really like inside its borders. But thanks to brave people who have escaped and reports from undercover journalists, we have learned about some of the darkest secrets the North Korean regime wants to keep hidden. These secrets reveal a country where human rights are ignored, and the government will do anything to stay in power. Let's dive into some of the most shocking secrets that North Korea doesn't want you to know about. Number 20. Being cut off from the rest of the world. North Korea keeps its people completely isolated from the rest of the world, both physically and digitally. The government doesn't let people leave the country without special permission, which almost never happens. If someone tries to escape, they face terrible punishments if caught, including torture, forced labor, or even being killed.
그 각자하고 이게 판자 있잖아요. 이게 넓적한 판자가 내가 때려서 그거 빨리 쪼개져야 돼요. 쪼개지지 않으면 나는 계속 맞아야 돼요. 그 판자가 쪼개져야 돼요. 쪼개져야 그 매가 끝나는 거.
Inside North Korea, the government controls all communication with the outside world. People don't have access to the global internet. Instead, they can only use a heavily censored intranet that is controlled by the government. Television and radio are limited to channels approved by the state, and foreign media is banned. Phones in North Korea can't make international calls, and the government jams foreign radio and cell phone signals so that people can't hear or see anything that goes against the government's propaganda. This extreme isolation keeps North Koreans unaware of what life is like outside their country. Most people have no idea how different things are in other parts of the world. The government works hard to keep it that way, because if people knew the truth, they might start questioning the government's power. By cutting off all sources of outside information, the regime keeps its hold over the population, making sure that people stay obedient and uninformed. This isolation also helps the government push its narrative that North Korea is a superior nation under constant threat from outsiders. Since people have no way to check if this is true, they are more likely to believe it. This keeps them loyal to the government and less likely to challenge its authority. Number 19. Control through technology and surveillance. In North Korea, technology isn't used to help people, it's used to control them. The government uses digital tools to spread propaganda and keep a close watch on everyone.
North Korea is an unimaginable country. There is only one channel on TV. There is no internet. We aren't free to sing, say, wear, or think what we want.
Unlike most countries where the internet connects people to the world, North Korea does the opposite. The government created a controlled intranet that is the only online resource available to the people, and even this intranet is full of government propaganda. Smartphones, which are common around the world, are tightly controlled in North Korea. These phones don't connect to the global internet. Instead, all apps and software must be downloaded from government-approved stores, where the government can see and control what is installed. From a young age, people are taught to be suspicious of technology and to report anyone who uses it in ways that are not allowed by the government. The government also uses technology to spy on its citizens. They monitor what people do online, and anyone caught expressing a difference in opinion or going against the government can be punished severely. Phones and computers are often checked by officials, and even private conversations can get people in trouble if they are seen as disloyal to the regime. This constant surveillance creates a culture of fear, where people don't trust each other and are always on edge. This high level of surveillance not only keeps people in line, but also reinforces the idea that the government is all-powerful. It sends a clear message that there is no escape, even in the digital world. Number 18. A society divided by class. In North Korea, your future is determined by your family's history through a strict caste system called Songbun. This system was set up in the 1950s by Kim Il-sung and divides people into three classes: the core, the wavering, and the hostile. The core class is made up of people who are considered loyal to the government. They come from families that have shown support for the regime, or they have proven their loyalty through service to the state. These people get the best opportunities, such as access to education, better jobs, and the chance to live in Pyongyang, the capital. The wavering class is in the middle. These people don't have strong ties to the government, but they also aren't seen as disloyal. They live with limited opportunities and the constant fear of being moved down to the lower class. It's rare for someone to move up in the caste system, but it's easier to be demoted. The hostile class is for those with a family history of disloyalty, such as former landowners, religious individuals, or anyone with connections to South Korea. These people are seen as enemies of the state and live in poverty, facing discrimination and often forced into hard labor.
The aim of the concentration camp was to have inmates to be constantly working as a way to repent for their sins. We worked from the moment we opened our eyes until we went to bed.
They are denied basic rights like access to education and healthcare. Number 17, selling weapons and nuclear technology. While the people of North Korea suffer from extreme poverty, the government makes money by selling weapons and nuclear technology to other countries. Despite international sanctions, North Korea has been involved in illegal arms deals, particularly with countries in Africa and the Middle East. One of the most famous incidents happened in 2012 when a shipment from North Korea was stopped on its way to Syria. The shipment contained nearly 450 graphite cylinders, which are essential for making ballistic missiles. This was just one of many shipments intercepted over the years. In 2009, North Korean arms were found being sent to Iran and the Republic of Congo, including missile parts and even old Soviet tanks. These illegal arms deals are a vital source of income for the North Korean government, which uses the money to fund its nuclear program and support the lavish lifestyles of the ruling elite.
This action targets the deceptive shipping practices that have enabled the Kim regime to fund its dangerous weapons programs.
Despite repeated attempts by the international community to stop these activities through sanctions, North Korea continues to ignore these measures and claims its actions are legitimate. The arms trade is not just about money, it's also a way for North Korea to spread its influence and maintain alliances with other rogue states. This network of illegal weapons deals has made North Korea a major player in global black markets, posing a serious threat to international security. Number 16, the energy crisis. Even in Pyongyang, where the elite live, electricity is a luxury. Most people in the city only have electricity for a few hours a day, and in some parts of North Korea, there is no electricity at all. This energy crisis is caused by North Korea's outdated and poorly maintained infrastructure, as well as the government's focus on military spending rather than public welfare. During winter, when temperatures can drop to minus 17.8 degrees Celsius or 0 degrees Fahrenheit, the lack of electricity becomes a serious problem. Without power, people struggle to heat their homes, leading to widespread suffering and even death from the cold. The situation is much better in neighboring countries like South Korea and China, where cities are brightly lit and power outages are rare. The energy crisis is more than just an inconvenience. It shows how little the government cares for its people. Instead of investing in infrastructure to provide basic services like electricity, the regime spends resources on its military and nuclear programs. This leaves ordinary people to fend for themselves, often relying on unsafe and inefficient methods to generate heat and light. The lack of electricity is also a way for the government to control the population. By limiting access to power, the regime makes people more dependent on the state for survival. This dependence makes it harder for people to resist or challenge the government, as their lives are directly tied to what the regime decides. Number 15, forced abortions. In North Korea, one of the most terrifying things the government does is force some women to have abortions. This mostly happens to women who escape North Korea and get pregnant in China. If these women are caught and sent back to North Korea, the government sees their pregnancies as a threat because the babies are part Chinese. When these women are brought back, they are forced to have abortions, often in harsh prison conditions without any pain relief. In some of the worst cases, the babies are killed right in front of the mothers. The government does this to keep its strict rules about race and to punish women for trying to escape the country. This is not just a horrible violation of human rights, it is also a way for the North Korean government to control its people through fear. Women who survive these experiences have said that the guards who carry out these abortions are extremely cruel and don't see the women as human. This terrible practice shows just how far the North Korean government will go to keep its tight control over the people. Number 14, propaganda villages. On the border between North Korea and South Korea, there is a strange village called Kijongdong. At first glance, it looks like a normal, thriving community, but it's actually fake. The North Korean government built this village as a piece of propaganda to make it seem like life in North Korea is great. They call it the Peace Village, but in reality, no one lives there. The buildings don't even have glass in the windows, and the lights are controlled by timers to make it look like people are living there. The streets are always empty because the village is just a show to trick people from South Korea and visitors into thinking North Korea is prosperous. This fake village is a clear example of how the North Korean government tries to manipulate what people think.
Every story was propaganda to brainwash us about the Kim dictators.
It shows how obsessed the regime is with controlling every detail of its image, even if it means building an entire village that's just a lie. The existence of Kijongdong reminds us how far the North Korean government will go to hide the truth from its own people and the rest of the world. Number 13. Child soldiers. Another disturbing secret of North Korea is that the government uses child soldiers. In North Korea, the military is very important, and being a soldier is seen as a big honor. Because of this, it's not unusual for kids as young as 14 to be forced to join the army. These children go through intense military training and often live in harsh conditions that would be hard for even an adult to handle. They learn how to use weapons, fight in battles, and are brainwashed to believe that the Kim family is godlike and that the outside world is evil.
North Korea is indescribable. No humans deserve to be oppressed just because of their birthplace.
For many of these kids, joining the military is not really a choice. In North Korea, where there isn't enough food and many people live in poverty, joining the army might seem like the only way to survive. The government uses these child soldiers not just to fight in wars, but also as symbols of loyalty to the country. This terrible use of children shows how little the North Korean government cares about the well-being of its young people and how determined it is to hold on to power, no matter the cost. Number 12. Forced disappearances. In North Korea, people can suddenly disappear without a trace, and this is a terrifying reality for many. These disappearances happen if someone criticizes the government or is connected to someone who is seen as a threat. The government uses these disappearances to scare people into staying silent and obedient. Those who disappear are often taken to secret prisons or forced to work in labor camps where they suffer from torture, hunger, and backbreaking work.
죽고 끌려나가는 소리 뭐 어디 감방에 옮기면서 하도 있다 하면 이 청각이 다 발달되고
The families of these people are usually left with no idea of what happened to their loved ones, living in constant fear and uncertainty. These disappearances are not random, but are part of a well-planned effort by the North Korean government to keep control. The government targets not just individuals, but also their families to remove any potential threat to its power. This practice of forced disappearances is one of the many cruel methods the North Korean government uses to stay in control, making sure that everyone knows no one is safe from its reach. Number 11. Controlled famine. While famine is often seen as something caused by natural disasters, in North Korea, it has been used as a way to control people. In the 1990s, North Korea went through a terrible famine known as the Arduous March, which killed millions of people. But what many don't know is that the famine wasn't just due to bad weather or poor farming. The North Korean government made it worse by keeping food for the military and those loyal to the regime, leaving the rest of the population to starve. The government refused to ask for international help and tightly controlled the distribution of food, making sure only those who support the regime got enough to eat. This made the famine not just a natural disaster, but also a political weapon. The government used starvation to punish people who were seen as disloyal or less important. Number 10. South Korean citizenship for defectors. Escaping from North Korea is extremely difficult. People who flee face long and dangerous journeys. Many travel through China, where if caught, they risk being sent back to North Korea, which could lead to severe punishment or death. But for those who make it to South Korea, a new chapter begins. South Korea welcomes almost all defectors from North Korea, offering them citizenship, safety, and resources to help start their lives over.
After coming to South Korea, as I began to learn how to live a normal life, as I started to become more like an ordinary person.
Since 1953, more than 24,500 North Korean defectors have resettled in South Korea. They leave behind a life of harsh control, oppression, and poverty in the north. South Korea provides defectors with job training, psychological help, and financial support to help them adjust. They also go through a vetting process to make sure they are safe and can integrate into society. While they finally experience freedom, it's not always easy. Life in South Korea can be tough, as defectors deal with trauma, discrimination, and the challenge of fitting into a modern society so different from what they've known. Though the South Korean government helps a lot, defectors often still struggle, but the support they receive offers them hope and a chance to live a life free from the fear they faced in North Korea. For many, this new life is the first time they felt true freedom. Number 9. Relentless indoctrination. In North Korea, the government starts teaching its citizens to be loyal to the ruling Kim family from the moment they are born. The regime controls every part of life, making sure that everyone believes in the greatness of the Kim family, even if it means bending the truth. This control isn't just about obedience, it's about shaping the minds of the people so they don't even think of opposing the leaders. Children as young as 3 are taught about the supposed heroism of Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-il, and Kim Jong-un. Schools focus mainly on the history of the Kim family, often at the cost of subjects like math and science. But it doesn't stop at school. At work, adults attend meetings where they are forced to criticize themselves and others. This helps reinforce the idea that any mistake is a betrayal of the country. At home, every family is required to display portraits of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il. If they don't keep these pictures in perfect condition, they can be punished. North Korean media also plays a big role in this indoctrination. Movies and TV shows glorify the regime and portray countries like the United States and South Korea as enemies.
We have to train our bodies well, to strengthen socialism and to be prepared for the war against the United States.
This constant propaganda makes it hard for North Koreans to see the truth about the world outside their country. Number 8. Sexual violence and exploitation. One of the most horrible and least talked about problems in North Korea is the widespread sexual violence, especially against women in prisons and detention centers. Women arrested for trying to escape or for small crimes often face abuse from guards and officials. Sadly, there is no justice for these women. In detention centers, sexual violence is common. Guards regularly assault female prisoners, knowing there will be no consequences. If a woman resists or complains, she could face even worse punishment. The women have no one to turn to for help, as the state doesn't recognize these crimes as wrong. The situation is even worse for women who become pregnant from these assaults. It is believed that many of these women are either forced to have abortions or are executed. Some women, fearing this fate, may offer sexual favors for better treatment or food, continuing the cycle of exploitation. Outside of these centers, sexual violence remains a serious issue. Women in North Korea are often seen as lesser citizens and have few rights. The government's refusal to admit there is a problem means that nothing is done to stop it. Number 7. Public executions. In North Korea, the government maintains control through fear, and public executions are one of the most terrifying tools they use. These executions are not just about punishing criminals, they are meant to scare people into obedience and prevent any rebellion against the state. People can be publicly executed for a variety of offenses, many of which wouldn't be considered serious crimes in other countries. For example, watching foreign movies, practicing religion, or criticizing the government can all lead to a death sentence.
When I was 9 years old, I saw my friend's mother publicly executed. Her crime? Watching a Hollywood movie.
These executions take place in public areas, with large crowds, including children, forced to watch as a reminder of what happens when someone goes against the regime. Executions in North Korea are brutal. Many are done by firing squad, but there are also reports of people being hanged or even crushed by vehicles. These extreme methods are used to send a clear message: the government is in total control, and any disobedience will not be tolerated. The psychological impact of these public executions is enormous. People are constantly reminded that their lives depend on their loyalty to the regime. By making these events public, the government ensures that fear stays at the center of North Korean society. Everyone knows that stepping out of line could cost them their life. Number 6. No freedom of religion. In North Korea, people do not have the freedom to practice any religion. The government sees religion, especially Christianity, as a direct threat to its power. If someone is caught practicing religion, they face harsh punishment. The government believes that allowing religion would challenge the control the Kim family has over the people. Christianity is seen as particularly dangerous because it offers a belief system that goes against the regime's ideology. North Korean Christians must worship in secret, and if they are caught, they face imprisonment, torture, and even death. This makes practicing any religion incredibly risky. The government actively hunts for religious believers, often using informants to infiltrate underground groups. This creates a culture of fear where even a simple prayer could result in severe consequences. By denying religious freedom, the North Korean government makes sure that the only thing its people are allowed to believe in is loyalty to the Kim family. Number 5. Labor camps. North Korea operates a network of brutal labor camps where people are sent for the smallest offenses. These camps, sometimes called prison cities, hold about 200,000 prisoners. The camps are surrounded by electrified fences, and prisoners are forced to work in terrible conditions, often until they die.
In the labor camp, I was only allowed to eat 150 kernels of corn a day. One morning, we were marching in our roast at work site, and I saw a dry vomit on the road. I was so hungry that I got on my hands and knees and began picking the rice out of the vomited rice. I didn't stop eating the vomited rice until the beating from the guards were too unbearable.
Many people are sent to these camps for trying to escape North Korea or for criticizing the government, which can be as simple as complaining about food shortages. But the punishment doesn't just stop with the person who committed the crime. In North Korea, if you break the law, your children and even your grandchildren can be punished too. This is known as the 3 generations of punishment rule. Entire families can spend their lives in these camps, suffering for crimes they didn't even commit. Number 4. Cannibalism during famine. Between 1994 and 1998, North Korea was hit by a terrible famine. Millions of people starved to death because the government refused to ask for help from other countries and took what little food was left for the military. As the situation worsened, people turned to desperate measures to survive. They ate anything they could find: grass, tree bark, and even insects. But some stories from defectors claim that the situation got even worse. In some cases, people resorted to cannibalism to stay alive. These stories are horrifying and show just how bad things were during that time. It's a dark part of North Korea's history that the government tries to cover up, but the stories continue to leak out from those who lived through it. Number 3. Insurance fraud. North Korea's economy is in shambles, so the government has turned to international crime to make money. One of their schemes is insurance fraud. The North Korean government takes out huge insurance policies on property and equipment, then claims that these things were destroyed. In some cases, they have even faked accidents to make their claims. This has allowed them to steal millions of dollars from insurance companies around the world. In one case, they took out a $58 million policy on a helicopter that supposedly crashed. When the case was taken to court, North Korea's state-run courts ruled in favor of the government, forcing the insurance companies to pay. This is just one way North Korea tries to get money, showing how far the government will go to fund its operations. Number 2. Human feces fertilizer. North Korea's farmland is poor and often doesn't produce enough food. For many years, they relied on other countries to send them fertilizer, but when South Korea stopped sending it in 2008, North Korea had to find another way to fertilize their crops. The government started a program that required factories to collect human waste to use as fertilizer. They even set quotas, and some businesses now make money selling human waste because it's in such high demand. The use of human feces as fertilizer is not only a sign of how desperate the country is, but also shows the government's complete disregard for its people's health and dignity. Number 1. Torture prisons. The labor camps in North Korea are bad enough, but there are also secret torture prisons that are even worse. These are places where political prisoners are taken to be tortured. One of the most infamous is Camp 14. Only one person, Shin Dong-hyuk, has ever escaped from this camp and lived to tell his story. He was born in the camp because his uncle had defected to South Korea. When Shin was 14 years old, his mother and brother tried to escape. When they were caught, Shin was tortured to find out what he knew about their plan. He was hung by his wrists and ankles, beaten, and even burned over hot coals.
The pain that I dealt with, being beaten while hanging upside down, being seared with fire, all of these experiences themselves, I thought it was only right because I was a prisoner and because my mum and brother had committed a crime.
The torture lasted for months, and he only survived because he was released just in time to witness the execution of his mother and brother.
Later, both my mother and brother were publicly executed because of me, and I had to witness their deaths in front of lots of people.
Shin's story is a rare glimpse into the horrors of North Korea's torture prisons, where countless others have suffered and died without ever being heard from again.